Well, I'm here today with Jennifer Ford-Berry. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Courtney. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Well, I've told her that already I'm seeing things that I need to learn. Like I need my podcast name on my microphone.
Very fun.
Yeah, it is fun. So Jennifer, she is a professional organizer. I mean, that in itself is amazing, but she's also a best-selling author. She's a podcaster of the 29-minute Mom podcast. She's a national speaker. So she's a very busy woman. Can you tell us about yourself, please?
Yes, I started doing organizing 20 years ago after I got laid off from my corporate job. Shortly after 9/11, I was working for a radio station and kind of in advertising, and being a newer person to the company, they laid me off because advertising got some cutbacks after 9/11. I was then pregnant with my first, and I thought it'd be fun to be a stay-at-home mom. But shortly after the first few months of being a stay-at-home mom, I realized I really needed to do something else.
Yeah.
And so I went on kind of a spiritual journey of figuring out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, even though I always thought I would stay in corporate America. And I just, after a long process, realized that I was always just gifted with the gift of organizing. I loved organizing since I was a little kid. I used to organize everything I could find. I was a kid that thought it was fun to rearrange my room and clean my room. My parents never had to tell me to clean my room. But I didn't realize that was a unique gift to me. I didn't know that. It was just kind of normal for me. And so I started praying a lot and doing some soul searching. And I decided to take a leap of faith and start an organizing business. What's interesting about it is, at the time, Courtney, there was nobody really that I knew as a professional organizer. Okay. So I knew a couple of people, Julie Morgenstern and Peter Walsh. Peter Walsh was on the Oprah show. I don't know if you remember that, with the Australian accent. And Julie had written several books, and that was about it. So we didn't have, HGTV and Instagram and Pinterest and all these great things. So back in the, olden days.
But hey, you were finding your niche. That's awesome.
I know. And what's funny about this is I literally just took a leap of faith because I knew in my spirit that this is what God called me to do, but I had no idea the journey he had in store for me. And I had no idea that it was going to turn me into a speaker and an author and a podcaster. And I don't even think they had podcasts back then.
No, not back. That was kind of like I don't know. I know I've been listening to one podcast for 12 years, and they were kind of right at the very beginning of that.
Really?
So, yeah.
Okay.
So it was before podcasts, but yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And what's interesting is this has evolved into a sort of ministry for me. And I think that's the coolest part of the whole story, is that I realized that I'm not here to just make people's houses look Pinterest perfect and have the perfect organized closet. I'm actually here to get them to separate their attachment to things so that they can have more, what I call STEM, space, time, energy, and money, for their God-given purpose. So that's really what my work is about now, 20 years later.
That is awesome. Well, I have a feeling that the conversation that we're about to have today is one that my husband's going to listen to this episode, and then he's going to come home and be like, okay, so which of these things are you going to start putting into play at our home? Because organization is not my forte. I've always said that in business and in like podcasting and that type of stuff, I surround myself with people that can help me organize. But no one's organizing my home. So he's going to be like, this was a good person for you to talk to. Now, what did you learn in your conversation with Jennifer, Courtney?
That's okay. I'm sure you have your own list of gifts and skills that I don't have. So we all have them.
That's true. That's true. I thought you were going to say, I'm sure you have your own organizational system. And I was like, yes, an ineffective one. Yes, I do. Okay. So at what point did you realize that, like, or maybe I should say this, how did organizing other people's stuff, work for you when you first started? Were you just going into their homes, or were you, giving them tips or tricks? What did that look like for you?
So I was going to people's homes when I first started. I was doing it for free for, friends that I had worked at the radio station. So I was like, hey, I'm going to kind of venture out into this new business. Can I organize your closets? Of course, they're like, sure, go for it. And that's the cool part too. In the beginning, I wasn't certified. I didn't have any training. This is literally just a God-given thing. And so, then I started this little email called free weekly organizing tips. And I would send out one tip a week that was so simple that you couldn't pass it up. It was just like, just super straightforward. And I didn't realize at the time, but that became my first book, all of those tips. And I realized right then that organizing is kind of like, I compare it to either hiring a financial advisor or hiring a fitness instructor, where you're just like, tell me how to get from A to Z, and tell me as quickly and as painlessly as possible. Mm-hmm. That's what people wanted to hear. And so that was how I started.
Yeah, that makes a lot of, we do need people to come in to our lives and kind of help us in those areas where we know we're not doing great. And sometimes it might seem like, well, do you really need someone to organize your house? The answer is yes. And we're seeing this all over the place now. Like you said, there wasn't all of this 20 years ago when you started, but now we've got the Marie Kondo, mindset. We've got, I have binged all of the Home Edit on
I love
Netflix.
Home Edit. I love that.
Oh gosh, there's a whole store dedicated to organizing things. So, mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? Why is all of a sudden, maybe it's because for a year we all sat in our own disorganization and
that's part of it.
I gotta do something about this. But why is all of a sudden a need to organize our lives starting to bubble to the surface of culture?
Well, even before COVID, it was really starting. I think it had a lot to do with being inundated constantly with consumption. So it's so easy to consume now because we are, with a click of a button, we can have anything delivered to our home. We don't have to actually go out, find it, pay cash. It doesn't hurt so much. It's literally just shows up. So we do a lot of that on a whim. We see something on Instagram, next thing you know, our cart is full on Amazon, and then 2 days later it's on our doorstep, and we haven't even cleared out the previous things that we owned. So I think that's it. And I think that our time is limited. We're busy, we're running. And when you are not organized, you waste a lot of time. And then COVID hit, and we were staring at the walls in our home and realizing that we needed some extra help. So That's right. Just keeps going, it's been very interesting because I say this a lot, but in the beginning, I felt like a lot of my, cause I still work one-on-one with some clients, and then I do online coaching. And so the one-on-one clients, more and more of them, mostly are women. They are not even home when I'm doing this anymore. They don't have the time to be home. They are working full-time jobs, and I'm in their home keeping things running and making sure that the right systems are in place. So that's been a big change over the past 2 decades.
Wow. I thought maybe you were going to say they're not in the home because they would save everything. And so they have too much emotional attachment. So I need them to leave the home so that I can get rid of their stuff or organize it.
Some have told me, I've literally had women tell me, I wish tornado would take down my house. I don't want to look at any of this anymore. I just want it gone. And these are beautiful homes. And this is how women feel because they are so ridiculously overwhelmed, Courtney. It's sad. They have everything, but they're not happy because of it.
Okay. So is the overwhelming part, is it the stuff? Is it the life, or is it the combination?
It's the stuff and the lack of time. I don't think a lot of us have time to just sit. Organization is so huge. There's the putting things in the proper place, but there's also the time management piece. And a lot of people are struggling with time management. And if you don't have your time management down pat, then it's going to be hard to get on top of the clutter. So it's a combination.
This is a message for my husband. You need to stop nodding right now. Because time management is absolutely something I have always struggled with. But you're right. I do find that if I will organize my time, which is literally a chore for me. I know some people, they love their calendars and but to sit down and actually like plan something out, I probably feel about that the same way that other people feel about going to the gym. Like I'm doing this and I'm hating every moment of it. I, for me, that is the case. But I also understand that when I do that, I personally experience more freedom because I know when I am spending time with my kids doing, whatever it might be that was on the schedule, it's fine. Even this week, I scheduled it so that Monday I was doing my work stuff. Tuesday, I was doing stuff here at the house. And Wednesday, we left and we went fishing as a family. And when we were out fishing and, swimming in the lake, my brain was not thinking about, oh my gosh, what are all the things that I'm not getting done? Because I had scheduled my week to make sure that my brain was free for that moment. And so I know that what you're saying, I know that what you're saying is right, but it's so difficult. And you have actually addressed this. You are a best-selling author and you've addressed this in several books that you have, and they're a part of your Organize Now series. What are the different topics that you discuss in your different Organize Now series?
So volume 1 is basically all of your space. So it's room by room in your home. Volume 2 is all about the clutter that affects our body, our mind, and our spirit. And then volume 3, which is Organize Now, your money, business, and career. That's about your money, your business. So each book is 52 weeks broken down into a very narrow topic that you can get organized from beginning to end. But It's so interesting because right there, that's 3 books with, 3 years full of topics that you can organize. And I think a lot of times people don't realize that the more parts of your life you can get organized, the better off you're going to be. And the more you'll enjoy your life. Because like you said, you did a system. And then when you were enjoying your life, you weren't thinking about other things because you knew you did the best with what you had the time before.
Right. Well, and I love too that you're not even, you didn't throw all those into one book. It was like, okay, here's this small portion. And this is what we're going to focus on, not for a week, but for a year. We're going to focus on this small portion of your life. And then in 3 or 4 years, then you can look back and see like the growth that you've had. But a lot of times I think we feel like, oh my gosh, if I'm going to get organized, I'm going to get everything organized in my house and my life and my spirit and my mind. And what you're saying is no. Yeah, like this. Yeah, exactly.
Like this weekend.
Saturday from 3 to 8. Yep.
Yeah.
Set time. So I love that you kind of break it down into those smaller sections, more like, manageable things. You have a new book that's coming out July 5th, and the cover is beautiful, which I would expect nothing less from someone who is organized. It just puts me at peace. It is called It's called Make Room. Take control of your space, time, energy, and money to live on purpose. So that's going back to that STEM idea that you said. Tell us about the book, who it's for, and why is this the right time to bring that book into the world?
Oh, it literally makes me feel emotional, even just hearing it, because it was such a process. I wrote those other books. They did very well. And then I took a break because it was just one after another. And I kind of got a little bit burnt out. And my kids were growing up. I wrote those books when my kids were, younger. And then all of a sudden I took a couple years off, maybe 3 years. And I felt like God told me to write this book. I was actually halfway done with writing another book, Courtney. And
really?
Yes, halfway. And it was just like, he just said, nope, you're writing this book. And so in my heart, I know that this is not just a book, but a movement. And I feel strongly that there's a lot of organizers out there. There's a lot of TV shows. There's a lot of books out there, but the Christian world, we know that life is not about stuff. And in the book, I talk about stewardship and, privilege giving, and about how we can if we have these things, we are to share them, and how we can use getting organized as a ministry by helping other local nonprofits. And so I started looking at getting organized as a ministry in my own life. And that's what I talk about in the book. And the other important thing is that I know we were all sent here with a specific purpose in mind. And just like with what I said earlier, with my specific gifts and talents that God gave me since I was a child, I realized that that was part of my purpose. And so I don't want people to be a slave to their things. I want them to have the space, time, energy, and money to follow their purpose, because that's what we need to make change in the world. That's and, right. You know, I believe, you know, I speak at a lot of churches, and when I talk about organization, people always ask me, well, I have all this stuff. Where could I give it? They don't even know about the different things that they could do to use this to help other people. So it's not just about helping yourself. It's about helping others. It's about showing your kids how to live this kind of lifestyle. And I'm not a minimalist. That has nothing to do with it. I'm not. People think that goes hand in hand, and it doesn't. I'm about living in a home that I am proud to bring people in. You know, I'm hosting Bible study tonight. Nobody else in my group hosts Bible study because they're just stressed out about their house. And I'm like, come on in, because this is how I live. Yeah. And everything in the home, I don't keep things I don't love or use. My kids were raised this way. And it's not that it doesn't get messy, and it doesn't mean that things get out of their place, but it's easy to put back. And so that's what I want for all women. I want them to come in their home and realize that, you know, having all this stuff is not necessarily making you any happier, but if you could do a quick cleanup and put things back in their home, you would be so much freer. Yeah. And so I'm proud of the book. You know, the other books were written with a different publisher. They didn't want me to write a Christian book. I fought for this book. I'm so proud that I'm now working with Baker Books, and that they get it. They get what the book's about and what it's going to do to help people.
And I love the fact that you recognize that the chaos or the clutter in our lives has a bigger impact on us. It's not just surface level. It's not just the fact that, you know, we can't walk through a room, you know, without tripping over something, or, you know, every time we walk into a room, we feel like it's messy, when really it's not. There's just too much stuff in there. But you realize that it goes a little bit deeper, and that sometimes that there is a peace. Like I said, the cover of your book is so like peaceful. And I feel like I can do that for a moment. I can do that for a picture or for a party. But what you're helping us to see is no. It doesn't just have to be a moment, an Instagram moment where, you know, all the trash is on the other side of the camera where no one can see. But instead it's a moment where it's going to affect our spiritual selves, and it's going to affect our relationship with God. I mean, how can you sit down and have a moment at peace with God when your life is in chaos? Because you feel like you should be doing something else. You feel like you should be cleaning that thing that's unclean. You feel like you should, and because of that chaos that is in your life, you can't sit down and just be quiet. And you alluded to this. I took a quote from your book. It said, God did not create you so that you could work to gain more possessions and then be a slave to them. And so I love that your book talks about this idea of like possessions than just stuff that we acquire. He does not want you to feel overwhelmed and stressed out. He wants you to have abundance, enjoy, peace, and love, not just have more stuff. And I feel like that goes against everything that culture is telling us. Yes, you're right. How easily we can get anything we want. I was even listening to a news report on the buy now, pay later. It's like brand new, you know, in a lot of online stores, and you can pay it in 4 installments. And that used to be like a QVC thing, but now it's on almost every website. And they found that here's the trick. They found that if people looked at it and said, oh, I only have to pay $20 for the next 4 months instead of $80 now, they were more likely to push buy on that full cart instead of, they call it cart abandonment, where you put everything in the cart and then you are like, oh, that's a lot of money, never mind. And you just leave it all in the cart. It is literally a trick to get you to buy more. And I was like, oh my gosh, like here it is. It looks like it's more affordable, but it's actually not. So can you tell us, how do this amount of possessions that the world wants us to have and tells us we need, and how does that get in the way of doing the kingdom work that we are destined to do?
So, reason why, well, first of all, let's just point out that marketing companies are getting paid big money to figure out how to get more stuff in your home. I mean, this is what I used to do.
I was going to say, you were in advertising. You understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand, but we have to be intentional with our space, because we're going to get messages more than ever. I mean, every time you pick up your phone, you're going to get a message. Every time you log onto your computer, you're going to get a message. And it's going to tell you that if you buy this, you're going to be prettier, thinner, more successful, wealthier, happier. And it's simply not true. So we have to be really careful, but the possessions they all come with attached to some amount of time they're going to take away, space they're going to take away, energy they're going to take away. And we're spending it in all these different areas, and we don't have enough of that for our relationship with God or our purpose in the world or serving, helping, because that all takes time. I mean, think about just think about laundry alone. The more clothes you have, the more time you're spending doing laundry. That's right. The more time you're spending putting it away. And then you have to spend more money to wash the clothes, and so forth and so on. It takes up space. And so next thing you know, the laundry is pulling at you more than opening up your Bible. And it's just it's a constant struggle for us because they're distractions. And I believe that Satan is using them as distractions. He knows that we'd rather go grab something off, you'll get a cutesy Instagram promotion, and next thing you know, you click that button and you're sucked into the world, and you've just spent $100 and you're happy, right? You feel, I call it the Target 5-minute high, because how many times have you gone into Target for one thing and then you leave with a cart full and you feel happy? Yeah. Like you feel high as a kite, but that happiness does not last. So it's so interesting to me that we want to take the easy way out by clicking the button and getting that 5-minute high, where really, if we were to spend 5 minutes, just 5 minutes learning, something from the Bible that we could carry with us every single day, that joy lasts so much longer. And honestly, Courtney, when I wrote this book, I studied a lot of what God spelled out about organization and time management. He is the creator of it. There's so much wisdom about this, and it has nothing to do with marketing. It was there from the beginning of time. He laid it out for us. So we just have to remember where our joy really comes from. It's not going to come from the stuff.
That's right. God wasn't in the business of selling things.
No, no. And it's been powerful to me to clean out a lot of people's houses after they've passed on and see their possessions and hold their possessions. And I feel space very deeply. And what always gets me is I've wondered, how many hours did they spend on this stuff? How many days did they work to accumulate this stuff? Did this stuff bring them joy and peace, or was it a burden? And the funny thing is, what's it mean now? None of it went with them.
None of it. Yeah. I'm thinking about a podcast that I just recently listened to, and the person being interviewed, Shauna Niequist is her name. She's another author.
Yeah, I like
her.
Yeah,
and so she was talking about how one of the small adjustments she made in her life was on her phone, on the home screen. And so when she opens up her phone, what she sees is her Kindle app. And then I forget a couple other things, but what she doesn't see on her home screen is her social media. And I would imagine for those of us that are like big with online shopping, that would be another thing. Instead of like sitting down and scrolling through Instagram or Facebook if we have 10 minutes, right? Instead, when we open up our phone, the first thing we see are better options for us, whether it be like a Bible app or, something like Proverbs 31 that has their, I forget the daily 5, or, just like a 5-minute devotional. or Kindle, that's, a book reading app. And so you can go on there and read for the 10 minutes that you have instead of mindlessly scrolling and going, oh, I need that. Oh, I need that. And allowing the world to influence us. Instead, we're looking at our phone and saying, okay, I'm going to spend this moment to influence my own mind, to let God influence my time. Can you talk about that? You talk about organizing your stuff and organizing your time. How to talk about the organizing of your time and how that helps in every other aspect, maybe even the idea of collecting stuff.
Yes. So I coach a lot about time because I think that we think it's just like everything else. You think when you're not good at something that everybody else has this really like magical formula.
Yeah.
And my systems are very simple because I'm not one of those people, I love the home edit, but I don't need to have like everything labeled and everything rainbowized. I just think that it's fun. And I do that sometimes in homes, but I also think that you have to create a system that the person living there can keep up with.
Yeah.
And when you're not on a TV show, things don't stay that way. So we need to reel it back and make things super simple. And for time management, it's the same thing. There's a simple process that you can do. It really has to do with, here's your to-do list. And then here's your amount of time that you have available, which, let's say, time is a gift from God. He gifted it all to us equally. All portions are the same, no matter where you grew up, how much money you have, the color of your skin, it doesn't matter. It's a resource that he gifted us, and it's what we use. It's how we use that resource that really makes a difference. So I really teach about being in control of your time, not managing your time, because time can get away from you, and people and things are constantly trying to steal your time away, just like the cell phones, right? Just like social media. So controlling your time, planning it in advance with a system that is based on your intentional living, your priorities, and making sure that when you look at your week, mapped out, it is showing the priorities, not just dictating to you. A lot of times I'll ask people raise their hand if they know what their priorities are, and they will raise their hand, right? Because everybody knows I know my priorities. And then I'll say, well, who's living out their priorities every week? And then they put their hand down. That's right. There's a huge difference, because you're not going to live out your priorities if you're not intentional with your time. So you need a system for that. And that's the cool stuff about, I think organization is so important for everybody, but it wasn't taught in school. And a lot of people have said to me, I want to be good at this, but nobody ever taught me how to do it. And it's something that you can learn at any age. And it's something that you can teach your child from, the time they're a toddler.
Yeah. And I think that just comes from being consistent. When you look at, I, as a mom, have to be consistent if I expect my kids to also be consistent. And yes, we all fail, but, we can teach our kids that. You did mention something about priorities. And I know that you believe that our organization helps us to live out our purpose. I 100% agree on that, because if we are not organized, like my husband and I, there was a while where we could not live out some of the dreams that we wanted to in ministering to other people because we were not debt free. And so all of our money was focused on paying off our debt so that now we get to bless other people. And it's not like, well, are we going to bless this person or are we going to pay the bills this, month? We don't have to think about that so much.
Right.
But as I have kind of worked into my later 30s, one of the things that I've seen from women, which I think is different than if I was talking to like a group of 16 or 18-year-olds, you say, what is your passion? What is your purpose? A 16-year-old, maybe a 21, 22-year-old could give you, this is my passion and this is my purpose. But then something happens like in the 20s and the 30s where, number one, your priorities shift because there's marriage or there's a really like important job that you're doing, big corporate job, or you've got kids that you're taking care of. Maybe you're staying home. So you've left what you thought your purpose was to now being a stay-at-home mom. And then also you've just gotten older. And so I say, well, what's your passion? And they're like, I don't even know.
Mhm.
Like I used to know. I used to think I knew, but I have no idea. So how can we, if we're sitting there going, I mean, I'd love for this to help me to find my purpose, but I don't even know what my purpose is. How
Mhm.
can we figure that out so that we even have an end goal in all of this organization that we're doing in our life?
Yes. And you do need an end goal. You don't, of course, you're going to have maintenance, but you do want to follow a plan step by step, beginning to end, to get to the other side of this, which is,
Yeah.
what I teach. But as far as purpose goes, that you want to start incorporating even in that process of getting organized in your time management, where you just give yourself time to daydream and imagine the possibilities. If you can't imagine the possibilities, when we all know with God everything is possible, anything is possible, you have to believe that. And then I think what you're saying, and I've thought about this a lot, is when you're younger, you have more time to daydream and imagine.
Yeah.
And as we get older, we are so much more realistic, and we're, consumed by all the to-dos and the tasks and the taking care of everybody. And we are responsible for more things and more, we have a house and we have a car and we have a job and all these things. So we don't even give ourselves the time to daydream. And
That's
it's
right.
so important, because you're not going to realize what your purpose is if you don't take quiet time, daydream, sit with God, let him speak to you. That's how I figured this out. That's been a 20-year journey. If I wasn't doing that, I would have never heard it. He could have been whispering it to me for years,
Yeah.
and I just didn't hear it. So it's important. I think that going back, if you have old journals, if you can kind of reconnect with who you used to be, you might see some clues. I think that there's lots of clues about purpose, even when we're young, even when we're children, and we just kind of miss it. Talk to your parents, ask them, talk to teachers, coaches. Who was I then? What did I love? What was I good at? And somewhere in there, you can start putting the pieces together of how you could utilize your purpose now.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is that purpose isn't about us anyways. It's about the people that we help, the people we inspire. And the reason we're doing that is because God will be glorified in that. So it's all about his glory. And he knows that. He knows that we can use that purpose to get the message out to him. And, Lord knows we need that more than ever these days. We need inspiration. We need everybody living on purpose. I believe there was a perfect plan. And if we all did our purpose, it would happen. We wouldn't have this kind of world. And so he knew what he was doing. I mean, he's the perfect organizer.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. God is the perfect organizer.
Yes.
Well, and it is easy to kind of let the busyness of life distract you from your purpose. And I think sometimes then that is when we begin to feel almost selfish with our time, of like, none of this is what I want to do. None of this is what I want to spend my time on. And instead I'm just doing for other people at all times. And the question, I think a good question to ask at that point of time is, what is it that you want to be spending your time on? Because if you're only ever focusing outward, and that's what you're saying, like, and never taking the time to look inward, to sit and be calm, to daydream. I love that. When was the last time you daydreamed? I couldn't tell you.
You're not the only one.
I know. In fact, my husband and I, we go hunting, and he asked me a couple years ago. We were sitting on a hillside, and the goal here is you're looking through a set of binoculars at a hillside across the ravine, and you're just looking for deer. Perfectly quiet. The sun has just come up, and he's like, "Hey, so what are you thinking about?" And I'm like, "Is that a deer under that bush? I'm going to count to 10. And if it doesn't move, I'm going to assume it's a rock and move on. And he's like, seriously, that's all you're thinking about? I'm like, seriously. But do you know how long it's been since I only had to think about whether that rock was a deer or a bush? And it took almost 48 hours before my brain like detoxed almost. And then he was like, what are you thinking about today? I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about this song as I'm looking for deer on the, tree side or on the hillside. And so I think we might even have to go through detox of our brain and our systems that we've set that are inefficient before we can daydream and be effective.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
that type of
I
stuff.
think you have to sometimes take yourself out of your everyday environment. Nature is obviously the best place to daydream. For me, when I'm, sitting, I go back and forth between Florida and New York. And when I'm at the beach, I feel the closest to God because I'm seeing this beautiful masterpiece. And I obviously am it's proven to me that anything is possible. And so I think it's the same. My husband's a big hunter too. And he always says that is where he feels closest to God.
Yep. My husband too.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's sad too, because how much time do we even spend in nature? Not enough time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where you can really just take a journal, go sit somewhere that inspires you, where it's quiet. You're just hearing the breeze or the waves or the birds, and just sit, and whatever comes out on that page, just let God speak to you. That's right. And don't talk yourself out of it. Because we do that. We'll say,
yeah, we
do. Well, I remember, honestly, I just think most recently, but I probably did this every step of the way. When God told me to create my ministry, I thought, who am I to create a ministry? Like, I tried to talk myself out of it. And I didn't realize at the time that everybody can have a ministry. It doesn't have to be this big to do, this big famous thing. We can't compare ourselves to other people. It's God create us in our purpose perfectly. That's just right. The way we are. We don't have to be like anybody else.
And God doesn't want you to be, because his purpose for you is not the same as those other people. And there are individuals and lives right around you that you can affect with the ministry that you're doing. That those famous people, whoever is in your brain right now, they will never meet those friends that you have. They will never be able to affect them on a deeper level. Sure, they can maybe go to a conference by that person and be affected by that. But guess who's in their everyday life? It's you. And so God can use you in a much bigger way if you will allow him. And you're right. If you will allow the space, if our life is so frantic that we can't focus on anything else, we miss opportunity for ministry. We miss opportunity to serve others. There's a song by Brandon Heath called Give Me Your Eyes. And he wrote it one day sitting in an airport, looking up and seeing all of the different people that were walking by him in the airport. And his prayer was, give me your eyes to see these people like you do, God. Not, in my humanistic way of, maybe judging where they came from or whatever. And that's almost what we have to do here, as you're talking about organizing your time, is God, give me your eyes, give me your plan, give me, these moments so that I can sit still and see who you've put in front of me. But if he wasn't sitting still looking at these people, he couldn't see them through Jesus's eyes, because his eyes weren't up. They were, focused on what he had to do in that moment. Okay, I'm going to be selfish here, and I'm going to ask you for advice.
Go for it.
Okay. There are moms out there going, this sounds great. And I feel like my kitchen, maybe my living room could be organized, but let's talk about kids and all the things. So 2 things. How do we organize our kids' things? And how do we deal with the twice a year onslaught of new stuff, Christmas and a birthday, where it's like, oh, good, more stuff to figure out to put places. Yeah. And the kids love it. So you don't, do you say no? Do you say, please don't buy our kids more things? How do you deal with it?
So there's so much, so much. So I think children are born with a little bit of a hoarding tendency. They love to keep everything. They think everything is special, which is so awesome. But they will want to keep like every shell and every rock they find. And that's just how it is. And I haven't seen, I've seen that across the board for many, many kids that I've worked with.
By the way, we brought a dead fish home from the lake yesterday. So that my son
How long are you going to keep that, Courtney?
So until he dissects it. My son wants to dissect it and look at
Hopefully
it. And
soon.
Yeah, then it needs to go.
Hopefully soon. Or it's too stinky. Yeah, I think that I believe that organization is a skill we need to teach our kids, just like reading, writing, a bike, all of that, because I don't want children to grow up and feel overwhelmed in their own home, which is what I deal with a lot. And it makes me sad. So I taught my kids this process from a young age. Now there's a lot of things going on here. There's a part where mom thinks that her way is the best. And if they put that organizing piece onto the child, then they don't do it the way they want it. And so they just do it themselves. We can't
never heard that. Never,
we can't
ever.
do that anymore. We're raising someone's future spouse and future employee. So we need to remember that. But also we need to teach kids that it's okay to pass things on to others when we are done loving and using it. And that is a blessing. I used to tell my kids before Christmas would come and before they were going to get inundated with more stuff, I would say, let's go through your room and let's find some stuff that you can gift to another child. And I would explain, there's kids that don't have dolls. There's kids that don't have these Matchbox cars. So let's, and I would praise them, like make them feel really important for doing that. And then they would get used to it as a tradition every year. We would do that before, and it would be like, they would be excited. And so just being an example and teaching that, but also making it super easy for those toys and the games, making like getting down, even if you have to get on your hands and knees and see things at their eye level. I think a lot of times we have this bigger brain and we're taller and we have more experience. We're like, how hard is it to put your books on the shelf? We think it's so easy. But to them, it's overwhelming. So you're not doing your children a good service by having too much stuff in their space, because it's overwhelming. Of course, they're going to pull it all out and play, and that's great. But to put all of it back is too overwhelming. So what I used to do is when I would cut their toys in half and I would flip flop them. So I would put half of them away. And then every 6 months I would flip flop them, and they would think it was Christmas all over again because they forgot about them.
Yeah.
It's just like when you clean out clutter and you find toys, and you're going to I also run a family consignment event, and it helps families clutter. And then we help charities. So when the kids see what their mom is bringing out of their car to sell, they're like, I love that. I play with that all the time. And she's like, no, you don't. And they forgot about it. So flip flop. And then it's okay as a mom to make decisions for your kids. If you know their room is too overwhelming and they haven't touched a lot of things, I think a lot of moms think, I can't go in there and I can't help that situation because it's their stuff. But they are not mature enough to make all of those decisions yet. So it's perfectly okay to go in and kind of eliminate some things if you know that it's not as important as they think it is, because they're going to naturally want to hang on to that stuff.
Yeah.
So I really think it's important to teach them to have open hands, and that stuff is not what brings you joy. It can bring you temporary joy, but it's not going to be lasting joy. And you can use a, example of a previous age. So if they're 8 years old, you could say, well, do you still want to play with your rattles from when you were a baby? And they would be like, no, what are you, crazy? But it's like, it's okay, because you go through stages of growing up and we let things go, and then we're into new things, and then we let them go, and then we're into new things. So just teaching and guiding and making it fun. Just make it fun. Don't make it so complicated. If you have 4 bins and they're all different colors, just say the cars go in the red bin. let's put all of the cars to bed before we go to sleep. Who can put the cars to sleep faster or whatever. Just make it fun. Don't be like, you're not getting ice cream if you don't put your Matchbox cars away, because that's not that exciting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Make it fun, praise a lot, and cut things in half. Even when they were like, my kids' birthdays were right after Christmas, I didn't give them all their gifts. I held some back for snowy days when they were going to be bored and stuck inside. They didn't know the difference, and they were happy when it was a snowy day and we had a new toy to play with.
See, that's the opposite. Here in Arizona, we do it for days when it's like 120 outside.
And days.
Yeah, you can't go outside.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I love the idea of, the swip swapping. I put my I feel like my my hot weather clothes I can wear all year long, except maybe my shorts. But my cold weather clothes I put away. And then in the fall, which is like November here in Arizona, when it gets cool enough, finally, I can pull it down. And it's like I got a whole new wardrobe. And all I did was just put them away. So I'm not staring at them all the time during the summer going, well, exactly. I can't wear anything in my closet because it's all too warm. Well, what I'm looking at, I can actually wear. And so I love that idea of only giving them like half those toys and then pulling the other half away. And then probably when you look at that other half, you can say, oh, when I put this away, this was a cool thing. But I can see that the little brother has now grown out of this item. You can get rid of it before you even give it to them, give them these new toys. And I can see that being really helpful in maybe getting rid of more of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, before we go to our final question, tell us, how can we find you? How can we pre-order your book? And I think you even mentioned that there's a giveaway for the book going on right now.
Yes, there's a giveaway on Goodreads going on right now. The name of the book again is Make Room. You can also go to my website, jenniferfordberry.com/make room. There's all, it's anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Lifeway, Baker Books, stuff like that. And the podcast is the 29-Minute Mom, where it's all about inspiration, organization, and education for busy moms. And I have also just started a brand new online coaching program for women that want to live a life of order and purpose. And it's called the Created Order Neighborhood. So you can just go to createdorderneighborhood.com. And I did that because I love working one-on-one with people, but I want to help more women. And I can't get to everybody, so it's just awesome because it's a community of women that are all like-minded, that are just like, yes, I want to clear the clutter out of the way, get good at time management so that I can figure out what my God-given purpose is and start living it out. And they're so encouraging and supportive of each other, which is awesome. So cool. There's all sorts of stuff. There's no reason why you have to let clutter slow you down and aggravate you and overwhelm you. But you can't, like we said earlier, it's not going to happen in one weekend. Just break it down into tiny baby steps. Don't think that you have to do it all right now. Just start putting a dent into it bit by bit. Even if you want to organize your kitchen, set a timer, work on it for an hour this week. Maybe you'll get 3 cabinets done. Give yourself a pat on the back, celebrate your win, and keep going next week.
Got it. I think that's a great final tip right there. Go and pre-order the book. Pre-orders may seem like, well, I'll just get it when it comes out, but pre-orders actually are very helpful for authors. They let publishers know about the interest in the book. They let sellers know what the interest in the book is, how many copies they need to have available. And so pre-orders are very important. So go and pre-order Make Room. You can, like she said, you can get it anywhere that you get books. Our last question that we ask is, because none of us are meant to live life alone, and you're certainly creating community for other people, who is it that's helped you along in your journey?
I feel like I couldn't even just say one person, but what I will say is that I have seen that when I'm listening, I have been guided the whole entire way, and that God has put specific people in my path at the right time that have been able to teach me and guide me, because everything that I've done so far, I don't have other people in my life doing it, like in my everyday life where I can learn from them. So I've really had to kind of figure it out as I go. And I'm always grateful when he puts somebody in my path that can actually tell me the next step or show me the way. And I will say this, that now that I've been doing this for a while, I think it's important for me to do that for other people. And I just did a podcast for a girl that is new to this whole thing. And she just said so many times, like, thank you for helping me and let me on your show. Normally podcast hosts say no because I'm new. And what I told her, and I live by this, is when I started, I actually reached out to Peter Walsh, and he actually spent several times with me on the phone or being interviewed and me asking him questions, and he guided me when I was new, and he was not new. He was a big deal. Yeah. And it's like, that's what it should be about. We should all be looking ahead for the people that can pull us up and putting our hand out to the people behind us. And so I think that's, I could go on and on about the people that God placed in my path that have put their hand out and pulled me up.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love even that idea of like, we're reaching out to people that are doing these things that we want to do. And we're not discounting ourselves. Like, I don't know if I should, like, I'm too new at this thing. Instead saying, no, I'm convinced that this is the direction I need to go. And so I'm going to get the help that I need, or the community. And then once we've been given that, to then turn around and offer it to others, offer that same community that we've received, so that someone else feels the same way and receives those same benefits that we did. I love that. Well, thank you so much for everything that you shared. I am sure that I'm going to have a conversation with my husband about all of the organizing that we need to do.
Hi, hubby.
Right? Actually, we do have one of the college girls from our church moving in with us in the fall. And so he said, you realize, like, that's an entire room that you have to clear out so that she has it. And I'm like, oh gosh, that's a lot of like organizing. And right now it's like our extra storage guest room, kids playroom. So it serves a lot of purposes. And I'm like, I know. So that is my goal for the summer, is that one room.
You got it. You got this, girl.
That's it. I got it. So thank you so much for joining us.
Set your timer, do a little tiny bit every day, but thank you.
I'm going to do that.
And thank you for everything you're doing with your show. I just pray that God blesses it and that it gets out to the women that need it. You're doing amazing work. So good for you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.